I want to tell you welcome to my channel, and here I'm going to be discussing with you um, about Photoshop. As you can see, Photoshop is open. I'm going to be discussing with you about retouching, the right ways to retouch beauty images, portraits, color grading, and other stuff that have to do with retouching image. So that's what this channel is all about. I haven't thought about making anything bigger out of it, maybe like photo shoots, and so I'm just narrowing it down for now to just photo retouching and tell you the right ways to retouch your images so that they can still maintain those realistic look. And yeah, that's it. This is my first time and I'm not used to doing this kind of stuff, so before I go into this tutorial, I want you to bear with me and just kind of be a little bit accommodating with my expression and the way I express myself. So I make a lot of mistakes while I'm talking. I'm going to try my best not to make as much mistakes. So, but if I do, just remember that it's the first time on this YouTube something, so just kind of accommodate me a little. So before I go into this, so I want to thank you all, the first view, the second view, third view, every other person viewing this right now. It's really it really means a lot to me. So being that this is my first video, I was wondering what I was going to talk about, and believe me, I've gone over this. I can't even count. I tried it, recorded the video, cancelled, did it again. So I was like, you know what, forget it, I'm just going to do anything. So this came to me and I just want to talk about it. I want to talk about mistakes beginners and intermediate retouchers do when they are doing frequency separation. There are common mistakes that I observed that retouchers do when they are editing. That's when they are editing, especially I'm talking about frequency separation here, and nothing more, just frequency separation. So I have just jotted down some common mistakes, and I'm just going to take them one after the other. This is not a retouching class, like I say, it's my first video. Other classes will come on retouching, and I'm going to organize myself more later. So let me just go straight into this so that I won't drop some bullshit here. So the first mistake I've observed while I have seen photos retouched by retoucher and how they go about their retouching, even some intermediate and it's common among beginners, but some intermediate also fall into these traps. So the first mistake I've observed is some retouchers go straight to frequency separation without healing first, and I feel that this is because they have this feeling that since you're separating your textures from your tones, every healing you can do them on your texture layer. Well, it's not totally wrong, and at the same time it's not totally right. There are some healing you have to do, like very visible blemishes. You have to heal them before you go into frequency separation, and it is because this this healing, the healing that you do at the beginning of your retouching and the healing you do during your frequency separation are different. It's not exactly the same thing. I don't know how to break it down, but when you are healing before retouching, you both the tones and the textures are in the same place, so it's going to be more realistic. If you can, you can even do all your healing, and then when you come to frequency separation, all you do is work on the tone and forget about the texture layer. That's if you can do it. But if you can't, let it be that what's left for the texture, when you come to do the healing that is left to do in your texture layer of your frequency separation, it's not going to be much, because when you come to heal in your frequency separation, you have separated the tones from the textures. So at that point, sorry, I just dodged. At that point, you don't get to remove everything sometimes. In fact, in a lot of situations, when especially the spots are kind of a little bit big, you don't get to remove everything. So it is advisable that you heal, especially the visible spots, those spots that stand out. It's advisable you heal before you go to your frequency separation. It's very very important. So for those that skip healing before going to frequency separation, please do not do that. It may be one of the reasons why your images are not as good as you really want them to be. And another thing, before I go to the next this next problem, is that when you are doing your frequency separation, certain blemishes, when you flatten them, they tend to look somehow. Some of them even get a halo around them because you're messing with the tone around the texture. So the texture layer is just technically the texture, but anything tone is on the tonal layer. So if you're messing with the tone around the texture, you get another situation. That's another reason why you should heal before you go to frequency separation. It's very very important. Well, that is it. And the next problem that a lot of retouchers have during frequency separation, and I think this is the most important problem, is the blur radius. Now we have a lot of a lot of retouchers, sorry, that tend to use the same blur radius for every photo they are editing, and some tend not to understand how the blur radius works in frequency separation and how they actually um, they don't understand the actual percentage of texture that should be removed from the tone. And I am going to do frequency separation yeah, tutorials in the future. If you stay tuned to this channel, I promise you are going to learn the right way, because it's an algorithm. It works with an algorithm, and I'm going to explain that in actual retouching classes, but I'm just listing out mistakes here. So, and some use fixed blur radius. It's not every blur radius that works for all skin tones, being that there are a lot of compositions that affect the way you retouch and your blur radius. Number one is the amount of texture in the image. It determines your blur radius. Number two is the sharpness of the photo that you're working on, and even the tones that surround them also determines your blur radius. So being that I'm going to explain that in depth in another tutorial on frequency separation. And then the next mistakes is the mixer brush wet level. um, you know, if you're doing frequency separation, use your mixer brush to kind of blend the image. That's to blend the tones, your highlights, your shadows, your midtones and stuff. And sometimes the wet level is too high, sometimes it's too low. So we're going to really talk on that and how the wet level really works with the mixer brush too. You kind of need to use a very low wet level, at least like 8, 9, or you can use 7 or even 6, whichever one you want to use. But to see, I've seen people using wet level of even 80. I'm like, what the hell? It's kind of appalling. So um, your wet level actually determines how visible um, your blending is between the tones. Now breaking this down is really going to take a lot of thoughts from me, because I am scattered and I didn't really plan for this. So between your shadow, midtones and your highlights, your wet level, it's the level of it shows the level of blend that's between them. That's if you're taking your your um your highlights. Now if you're working on your highlights, now if you increase your wet level, your highlight tends to spread faster. In other words, it becomes faster. Your mixer brush to becomes faster, and your blending becomes more visible. And sometimes it's not sometimes, in every situation the wet level shouldn't be high, because the blending has to be subtle, so it has to look realistic. Somebody is not supposed to know the difference between the highlights, your midtone, and your shadows. They have to like blend together. So that's the next problem. Another problem is retouchers tend to mess up the skin tone due to lack of knowledge of the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows, and the contour. Now, the highlight, midtones, and your shadows, they work hand in hand with the contour. In fact, that's what gives the contour of the entire image. The contour is simply the shape. In this image, you have a shadow here making this place, so you can know that this is the jawline. It's actually the jawline. So, but it is represented by a shadow. You understand? So, and here is the cheek, and how will you know it's represented by the highlights and the midtone? So it kind of gives it the shape. So all this inwards little shadow here, highlights here, midtones, and all that stuff, it's we're going to talk about it in depth in other tutorials. So you should understand that the shadows and the midtones and the highlights work hand in hand with contour, because that's literally what gives the image its shape. Like here on her shoulder, if you observe carefully, this shadow here, what does it tell? It shows you that this is her arm. So if this place was to be flattened out, it will just look like it's just the chest. But this shadow here shows you that it's her arm. This sharp shadow here, this very sharp shadow here, shows you that there's a sharp fold here from her chest to her arm here. So we're going to talk about this in depth in other tutorials. That's why I'm telling you, this class is actually going to be full of a lot of knowledge. If you are here new, I will advise that you subscribe. And all this knowledge I'm going to give you most of them for free. Just use them, work with them, and you will understand better. So knowledge that you will have to pay for on other channels, I'm going to give you for free. I'm not telling you I'm giving you all my classes for free, but as I'm just starting, everything I'm giving you for now is going to be for free until I've kind of organized myself. Then I will see. But I believe that I'm going to give you tutorials that you will have to pay for on other channels, and that I'm promising you. So let's continue. I think I've spoken about that. So yeah, the next problem here is reducing and increasing the brush size. That's I just wrote it and I'm reading it exactly the way I wrote it. Now, brush size is one of the problem retouchers have when doing frequent separation. That's the brush size of the mixer brush tool. You find out that sometimes you need to reduce your brush size when you're entering places like this, and even when you're blending, your brush size there has to be a certain brush size you use to blend certain areas correctly and stuff like that. And yeah, a lot of retouchers tend to have problem with their brush size. Some use a particular brush size throughout the entire image. You kind of make it very small and then try to use it to retouch the entire image as it is, which is going to be frustrating, and the image is going to turn out really bad because you're definitely going to mess up the tone of the image. So we're going to talk about the brush size too. That's in other tutorials. I'm just listing the mistakes. So if you are, let me just give you a quick example here. If you're now, this is my mixer brush, and okay, let me click on this layer. So if I'm going to retouch here, you're not expecting me to use the same brush size I will use here to use it here. I'm definitely going to flatten the mouth. If I'm going to go up, not touch the mouth, I will definitely flatten the nose. So I can't go in between here with it too. I'll flatten this line. So in order for me to really brush this place correctly, I'll have to reduce my brush size, work on here. And some retouchers actually know that they have to be patient to use different brush sizes for different areas, but just because they don't have the patience to wait and really work on the image correctly, they tend to mess up the image at the end of the day. So I will advise you to be patient. There's a lot of patients that go with retouching. There are images you can retouch for 2 hours, 3 hours. One of the persons I'm following, Pratik Nike, he's my like role model in editing. I follow virtually all his tutorials. I have watched his master classes. Yeah, not all, but most of them. So he was saying that one time he was in a tutorial that he summarized it in 58 minutes, and that was a tutorial he actually um, he worked on that particular image for 20 hours. Now I'm not telling you that I actually when I was listening to it, I had to take it back so that I could hear exactly if my ear was deceiving me, if I actually had 20 hours. And it was 20 hours. I was like, what the hell? What was it? Like, there's a lot of things to work on. So, a retoucher is a patient person. You have to learn to be patient when you're working, especially when you are working for someone that has paid you to really give them the best. You have to be patient and give them the best. So, that's it. And, uh-huh. I think the next problem is brushing along the contours of the line. Now, a lot of retouchers kind of, in fact, this is one of the major reasons why a lot of retouchers mess up their image during frequency separation. Now, if you are to brush any image, you should brush along the lines of the contour. How is the line going? Now, this is the jaw line, and it is represented by this shadow. And this line is going this way. As you can see, my brush going gradually. That's how it's going. I'm not expected to start brushing it like this. No, at the end of the day, I'm going to clear up that contour. I'm going to clean it up totally, and I'm going to mess up the skin tone because this shadow is going to spread into the midtones. The midtones will spread into the shadow and stuff like that. Like this highlight is like this, right? So I'm not supposed to blend it like this. No, the difference between this highlight and this midtone is the line is like this. So you don't expect me to blend it like this. No, by the time I do that, I'll be spreading the highlights into the midtones and I'll be spreading the midtones into the highlight. At the end of the day, I'll just mess up the entire image. So that's how some retouchers retouch. So it is expected that you retouch along the lines of the contour in the image. Like this place now, I should retouch like this. If I'm cleaning this, if I'm blending this, what is it? The skin tones here, I should be blending like this, not like this. That's going to cause a lot of problem. So that's it. It's another mistake a lot of retouchers and even some intermediate find themselves doing. Let me go to the next. I'm brushing the edges, which creates halos. It's another very, in fact, it's very rampant. I've seen it a lot of editing. You find some retouchers that brush along the edge of the image. It's not advisable. It creates a halo around the edge there, and it's as if you're blending the subject to the background, and it flattens the image actually. Now, why am I saying this? Now, if you observe this particular part, this is the midtone, it's flat, right? It's flat. So, but at the extreme end of this image, at the extreme edge here, you find out that there is this shadow. Let me just zoom it in. Just a sharp shadow down there, little shadow. Now, what is that shadow showing you? It's showing that there's a curve here that that is, and it's sending a message that there's a part of the image that you cannot see. So when you're looking at this image and this, you see this little shadow here, you have an understanding that yes, this image is not like a paper that was cut. It's a human being, so there's a shadow. So there's a shadow there to show that it's a curve, that there's a part of the image behind that the camera could not capture. So if you flatten this place and you create that halo along the line here, you create it, and then it looks like you're blending the background and the foreground. It looks like it's just cut out of a paper. So it's very important. The shadows should not be tampered with when using your laser brush. Or even your laser tool shouldn't go to the edge of the image to clean it. So it's very important. I think I'm on the last. Yes, and this is very important. Cleaning instead of blending. A lot of retouchers tend to do a more of cleaning instead of blending. Now, frequency separation, it's all about blending, not cleaning. And that is one thing I want to correct. It's a notion that a lot of retouchers do not understand. When I see a lot of images where retouchers tend to do their frequency separation, and it's as if they cleaned the image. And sometimes some images tend to look more like dummies and all those, yeah, dummies, all those dummies that I use for displaying clothing um out outside boutiques and other stuff like that. Now, I tell you that retouching frequency separation is more about blending. That is, you blend the tones, your highlights, your midtones, your shadow, you blend them together, and then you fix the patches in the image. When I say patches, I'm talking about maybe where you find too dark or where you find too um bright or stuff like that. You can blend them together so that it won't even show. But the main action, or let's say the main way for cleaning white and black patches and all that stuff, or shadowy and bright, like I said, just bear with me, I'm scattered. The main way to blend like shadowy and bright areas are to use your dodge and burn. So I want to talk about that in another tutorial. But this tutorial is just about fixing mistakes. So retouchers do more of cleaning instead of blending. So like it kind of makes the image look unrealistic. You don't like just take your brush and start brushing it around the entire image. You have to follow the lines in order to blend them. So we want to really practicalize some of this. Actually, all when we do frequency separation, we're going to practicalize all this, and we are going to know exactly how you should go about your frequency separation in order for your image to still look realistic and not to change the structure of the face and the way the subject looks. So I think that's going to be the end of this very class. Look at what I just said. Very. Well, that's going to be the end of this class. If you have other mistakes you think that retouchers make during frequency separation, please drop them in the comment section. And if you think that there's anything I said that is wrong, please drop a critique in the comment section, and I'll be actually to take the corrections if they are needed. That's if it's actually correct, because in everything you have to know a craft, and if I'm actually wrong as I'm learning, if I try the correction, that's the critiques, and it's actually better, is to just take the correction and learn and grow. So we're here to grow together. If you have actually gained value from this, I would like you to give me a thumbs up, and if you think it's not good, you can give me a thumbs down too, but I would like a thumbs up. And please do subscribe to this channel. Yes, as you can see, maybe if you're watching this video, I don't even have a single subscriber, but I tell you, if you subscribe to the channel, you're not going to regret it. I'm just starting this, and I'm going to try to give my all into it. So do well to subscribe and stay tuned